Now, one thing that I like to do when I do my tracks under my crowd control alias is to have a very separate sub bass that will play together with a kick.
How are you doing, guys?
This sub bass consists of a very simple sine wave, and it's purely just to get that nice thump and oomph, you know, for the bass line. So when the kick and bass are playing together, it just sounds really great. So let's have a look how we can make such a bass line. In the whole project, I'll be using Serum and in Ableton plugins, so you guys can just use this project if you want to, you know, make something of your own. Right now, we have the initialized presets from Serum with the kick, which sounds like this. And I'm guessing that's a pretty too high, so let's just put it one octave lower. And maybe let's give this an LFO tool. So let's look for an LFO tool, and here we go. Let's pull it all the way down. And now let's go inside Serum and let's make our bass line. First, let's check out the analog shapes and say basic shapes, for example. And we have the sine wave. So this is the one we want to hear. Looking at the EQ, I see that I'm still not in the sub area, which is below 100, so I'm gonna pull it down by 1 octave. Now I have a nice sub over here. Of course, this is still not ready. We need to make this looking nice and sounding cool, because when you look at this now, you see it's not very nice. It keeps changing and it just sounds like one long sausage. So how do we do this? We turn off the randomness and assign the phase where we're happy about it. Nice pretty click, but I still would say that the attack is too sharp, so let's say give it like 30 milliseconds attack. That's much nicer. Let's put the sustain down and decrease the decay until we're happy. I think about 300 was something. That was pretty cool. So now we have a nice pumping bass line. If you look at the group with the kick, we see that we have a nice waveforms here. Okay, let's continue. When we look at this bass, we only have this one harmonic and some underneath, but we need more. So how about we add one more? We're gonna be using the triangle wave. So let's find it. Here it is. Now what I want to do is, of course, turn the randomness down. Play with the phase until I'm happy with the sound. Now this has a nice ring to it, and it's pretty loud in here. So let's do one more thing. I want to cut it down a little bit. So let's pull in the caravan to envelope. Let's put it like this. So what we want to do in this envelope too is pretty much the same thing as we did with the other one, just a little bit sharper. So we're getting somewhere nice. But I'm still not happy. I think it could click a little bit more, so I'm gonna pull this level down here and pull this one up. And now it has a nice sub. Let's have a look in here how it looks with our kick. So it looks like the waveform is nice. It's not touched very much, but let's try to pull the volume up and see how it's gonna look. And now we see that our waveform is starting to be crooked a little bit. So how do we fix this? Well, we have a few options. First, we can play with the delay and move this down until we're happy, or up. Well, you don't want to go more than 6 milliseconds. The aim is basically to have a very nice, neat waveform. When you look at this waveform, just the kick only, you see it's pretty cool and nice. And we want this bass line to basically cover it. There's one more thing that we can do with this bass line to fix it. We can do a little bit of a low cut here. Let's say about 30 milliseconds. And now we're getting somewhere. So it looks pretty neat on 3 milliseconds forward. How about we move the phase here on the sub and see what's gonna happen. Let's keep looking. away. And that's pretty nice. That sounds like one sound, and that's what I'm after. Basically what you want to hear, if we put one EQ here on this group, and when you listen just to the low end, you want to hear this kick sounding like you don't want to hear this is not trance. This has to be more like techno, so you want to hear that nice punch in the low end. And you can hear it sounds like one sound, and that's what I was after. We can also have a look on the kick and see its actual key, which over here it says F sharp and G, so G would be probably the key. So our bass line should sound absolutely perfect with G. But even though it looks beautiful, it doesn't have the resonance that I'm after. So let's go back to our original key. And I'm happy here. So that's gonna be our kick and bass. Let's turn this main EQ off, and here we go. Alright, that's done. We can now move on to the mid bass. That is very important in this style. During lockdowns of COVID-19 pandemic, we all remember those vividly, I believe. I looked for ways on how to bring the time-tested and truly working music production tips and tricks to everyone. And we came up with readyformasterclass.com, an online platform where you can learn from me directly and learn how I do my melodies, how I stack leads, process bass lines, and overall how I produce trance and progressive using Ableton Live. There is a wide variety of masterclasses for you to choose from, and we add more every month. And now it's time to add our mid bass. I made this really easy preset in Serum that we're gonna use for our mid bass, but you can basically use whatever you like as soon as it, you know, serves your taste and what you like. Or you can make your own preset if you want. So let's load up the preset. Have it right here. Let's call it Melodic Roll. It sounds like this. It's a fairly simple preset. As you can see, we have just one triangle and one saw with some of the bending and asymmetry. And again, it's pretty short. Let's pull it down a little bit and let's have a listen with our kick without anything on top of that. Alright, sounds pretty cool, but we need to do a couple things. First of all, let's have a look at its EQ and see how it looks over here. So you can see we have a lot of sub coming through, so let's cut it out at around 100 Hertz. A little bit more here on the low end. Okay, that's pretty cool. And maybe we can boost up those mids a little bit. About 160 would do. And maybe a little bit more narrow. And there's this beautiful frequency somewhere in the higher mids. Yeah, right here. At around 825, 850. Let's boost it up. Let's do 5. Yay. Now here comes a trick. Because when you only use one mid bass or one sub bass with a mid playing on top, you want to make this a little bit more wide, so it's not so static in the mono. You know, you want to make the sound so it like hits right into your face. For that, we're gonna use utility, and just very simply, we're gonna raise the width, let's say 160%, and we put a bass mono over here. So let's have a listen to that before and after. It's missing one thing, the LFO tool. Let's make it a little bit less harsh. Say let's make it sort of like this. This would be alright. Not bad, but it's still very loud, so let's just turn it down here on the gain. It shouldn't be louder than your kick. Let's have a look in here on our group so we can visualize it. And I can see that the bass is a little bit louder than the kick. So let's turn them both down by like a 2 dB. And I think now I'm happy. And it sounds pretty cool. So this is without the sub. And then with it. So this way you maintain full control of the sub. You can even make it a little bit louder if you want, you know? And then so you get that right pump. let's change this to one shot first, no snapping, a little bit of fade out, and just make sure that you have that EQ on top of the kick as well, that this low end over here is taken care of, so it's not cutting through. Let's double check if everything is in phase. Looks pretty neat. Maybe could be a little bit better. Oh, nice. At 6 it sounds pretty cool. This was before, and you can hear the difference. Suddenly the bass just pops up. When you have your kick and bass ready, that's basically the bass for your track. When it sounds good, anything you put on top should sound well, because melodic techno and techno sound is all about making people dance. So when you nail kick and bass, everything should be fine.